Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer Podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight is Joe. How are you doing tonight, Joe?
Doing pretty good, Andrew. How about you?
The snow is kind of nice, although I was just out getting the walks cleared off again, and that's hot and sweaty work. I don't care what anybody says or what the outside temperature is.
Absolutely.
There are definite disadvantages to living in town, that's for sure. Jason will not be joining us tonight. His back's acting up, and he was having some of those back spasms he had over the fall. So Jason's on the 7-day IL, and hopefully he'll be better, and we'll see him back next week when hopefully I believe Big Jim's hopping on, and I don't know. I thought Jason said he had somebody else, but maybe not. I can't remember. Anyway, so Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking Evan Williams cherry bourbon.
Ooh, very nice.
It's when you want something a little sweet to go with the whiskey, want to have soda. That's a good option.
Yeah, there you go.
I keep it chilled too, so it comes out like a syrup almost, and goes down to so.
Oh, I bet that's good. I bet that's smooth. Plus, you probably didn't want to get any more crap for the SoCo like you did last week.
Gotta change it up sometimes.
Tonight, I am drinking a classic Guinness Stout because it's one of my favorite beers, and it's what I had in the fridge because I haven't really been leaving the house too much with the weather the way it's been. So,
Yeah.
So before we hop into the AL Central, let's just a quick update. Well, it's not really much of an update because for the first time in about 6 weeks, the players and the owners finally sat down to discuss important issues as opposed to just the minor little issues. And really, not a whole hell of a lot came out of those meetings. The owner's proposal made very, very minimal changes up from what their initial proposal was. The players were predictably not very happy about that. And I think that, one of the bigger things, they want to go to a 14-team playoff. The players are stuck at 12. Slight tweaks to the draft lottery, nothing major. They want to, a proposal to increase the competitive balance threshold from 210 million to 214 million because in the world of major league salaries, 4 million makes a huge difference. And they also, of course, because it's the owners and they don't want to spend money, they also said, oh, and we're going to add more penalties if you exceed the CBT. So, yeah, nothing really happened. I wish I could say I was surprised, but the way these two sides have dug in, I really can't say I'm surprised. We're not at the point of no return yet, obviously. We still have a couple weeks before February. And that's really, you want to try and get things really hammered out by then so free agents can get signed before spring training. Or, I mean, even if you have to push spring training back a week or two, no big deal. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about this back in December, I think I said somewhere around this time they had to have something done for things to move on schedule, and I think that's still the case. So I think we're going to lose a week or two of spring training. There's way too much free agency that has to get done.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much, rehabbing that has to get shored up and rosters that have to get shored up. There's too much to do. It doesn't sound like there is, but there's a ton that they have to still do. The fact that it took this long for them to talk is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the fact that the owners didn't come in with a, better first offer is kind of ridiculous. To me, at least, this 14-team playoff, we have 14 teams in the NFL. We had some crappy football this weekend.
Yeah, I was, and I wasn't, I'll admit, full transparency, I was not watching hardly any of it at all. But from what I did see, that was some pretty pitiful football being played.
Yeah, it's really just, no offense to our many Eagle fans on this show, but they were just clearly out overmatched, clearly not meant to be in the playoffs, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think the same goes for the Steelers last night.
Yeah, the Steelers look terrible.
It's ridiculous. For adding that extra team does not add any benefit. The only thing it benefits is the owners if the teams make the playoffs.
Jim put up on probably on Friday, he put up, who are you predicting and all that on his page on the Huddle Up Podcast Facebook page. And I said, honestly, what we're going to see this weekend is that adding the extra team was purely a money grab. It dilutes the playoff pool, and the lower ranked teams are going to get thrashed. Look at Philadelphia. Look at Pittsburgh. They got thrashed. Dallas getting knocked off. I'd love to say I'm surprised, but let's face it, man, I'm never surprised when Dallas loses a football game. I know Jason, if he were here right now, would be happy to see the Eagles go down and then be incessantly pissed off that the Cowboys pretty much just crapped the bed in the worst possible time of the year. They were terrible. And the officiating too, there was some atrocious officiating in football this past weekend. So, that's another part that they hadn't even considered, is that if you dilute the talent pool for the teams, you're also diluting the available talent pool for the referees. So I think that also should. I think ESPN the next day, actually, after I believe it was the Raiders game, said, yeah, none of those guys will be officiating again this playoff because of how bad it was. You never see a professional sports team or a sports league come out that quickly and say, no, they totally sucked and they're not going to be back in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to do anything to help the major leagues. I think the only thing that baseball should consider at this point with regard to the playoff is extending that wild card play into a 3-game.
Yeah, completely agree with that.
That's the only thing that makes sense from a player standpoint and from an owner standpoint.
Right, and as nice it would be to push it to 5, that's too much downtime for the teams that are already have won their division and made it through. Potential, unless they're going to do 5 games in 5 days, that would be pretty cool. But if you're going to do that, you're probably going to have to do it at a neutral site, because that's especially if it would be like a West Coast versus East Coast thing, 5 straight days with no travel break. The union's going to be up in arms about that.
Right.
All right. So enough about that depressing topic. Let's get into the AL Central, and we will, as we did last week, we'll go from worst to first. And at 5th place last year in the Central, we have the Minnesota Twins. They had a record of 73 and 89. Guys that are left from the depth chart, you have Mitch Garver, Ryan Jeffers, Miguel Sano, Luis Arez, Josh Donaldson, Jorge Polanco, Nick Gordon, Brent Rooker. Outfield's not bad because they still have Byron Buxton out there. Max Kepler's not bad. Alex Kirilloff. Pitching, this is going to be a big problem because nobody's going to be scared of a starting rotation of Joe Ryan, Dylan Bundy, Bailey Ober, Randy Dobnak, and Griffin Jacks. So the big moves that they've made, they did sign Dylan Bundy was kind of like a 1-year prove-it deal, 1 year, $4 million. And then they have an $11 million team option for 2023 with a buyout as well. And then they re-signed Byron Buxton long-term, 7-year, $100 million. I got to tell you, Byron Buxton, 7-year, $100 million. If he's healthy and he's on the field, that's a great deal. But at the rate he gets hurt, that's a lot of years and that's a lot of money.
Yeah, this is like a Pujols deal when he went to the Angels, and he clearly didn't have that much time left. As a productive ball player. So this would be, if Trout signed a deal like this right now, it would be a losing situation for the Angels in that case. So yeah, this is not good. They weren't afraid of that starting rotation last year, hence the reason they finished last in the division. They need a ton of pitching depth.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing with the pitching depth for the Twins. If they go through a COVID outbreak, they don't have a ton of depth to pull up from out of the minors either. And here's the thing. The Twins, if you just look 2 years ago in the shortened season and the year before that, they were not this bad, and they have not made that many drastic changes to that lineup. I mean, I think we all agreed outside of the White Sox end of the season performance that the Twins were one of the most underperforming teams in the league this year. The AL Central is weak outside of the White Sox, and there's really no good reason that they should be this far under 500. I think we're going to see the Twins making some moves. Frankly, they're going to have to when free agency eventually opens back up. I imagine they're not going to be going in for an ace, I wouldn't think, but I would think a couple second, third tier starters. I could absolutely see them grabbing that just to try and get that extended push to at least get the second and maybe push for the wild card towards the end of the year.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is they're not, one or two players away at this point. To me, they're definitely, you know, two or three pitchers and then some offense. That they're more than three pieces away
Yeah.
from anything. They were the most disappointing last year, but they didn't really. Um, they have some youth talent. Jason was saying in the chat there's that they have some prospect talent they could bring up, but there's not a whole lot there to be shocked or surprised or scared of. So I don't know what they're gonna do differently.
All right. So last season, like I said, they were 73 and 89. It looks like Jason had them set at about 75 wins for the upcoming season. Where do you have them at, Joe?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Jason. I don't see them doing a ton of moving from there. So I mean, I think it's a fair assessment. I think what's really ridiculous is you look at, and we'll get into this a little bit further on here, but the White Sox could have finished at 500 or a game over 500 and still won the dang division.
Yeah, that's pitiful.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So this is like the NFC East of baseball divisions right now.
Yeah, boy, isn't that the truth? I think I'm going to put them about. I think I'm going to go a little bit ahead of you guys, not too much farther. I think I'm going to go 77, 78 wins next year. I don't see the Royals doing anything. And if anything, I think the Royals are going to regress more. So I think just on that alone, now that I think about it, I shouldn't have said second before because I forgot how much the Tigers are trying to load up. So forget that. They're pushing for third. But I do believe that they will get ahead of the Royals. I think the Royals are going to be our fifth place team next year.
Yeah, it's
all right. So let's move on to the Royals. Oh, sorry.
No, it's certainly possible that they move up one, but I can't see them challenging much further than that.
Yeah. All right. So now looking at the Royals, they were fourth place last year with a record of 74 and 88. Now they do have some talent coming back. You've got Salvador Perez, the ageless wonder at catcher. Carlos Santana still a good bat at first base. I love Whit Merrifield at second. Bobby Witt Jr. at third. Nicky Lopez at short. In the outfield, they've got Andrew Benintendi, Michael Taylor, and Kyle Isbell, and Hunter Dozier at DH. Again, same problem the Twins have. This is the starting rotation. It's Brady Singer, Chris Bubik, Brad Keller, Daniel Lynch, and Mike Minor. And as much as I loved Mike Minor years ago at the Braves, he is a shell of himself now. And let's face it, he wasn't an ace back then.
Yeah, some of Jason's thoughts on this. The Royals are on the up and up. They need some more consistent bats around Salvi. He's the big, the lion's share of their offense. Jason also said Asa Lacy is a stud pitcher in their system. Cam Gallagher, who I don't know if you mentioned him or not, but he's a local product here from Manheim Township, here in the Lidditz area. So maybe he can come up, and he's a catcher too. So I'm assuming he'll be, getting some time there, hopefully.
Yeah, it looks like Cam Gallagher is right now slated to be Salvador Perez's backup in the majors.
Good.
Yeah, that'll be cool to see a local guy up. We don't see that really all that often. So good luck to Cam. Hopefully he has a good season.
Yeah.
What are you thinking over under, Joe? It looks like Jason has them at about 80 to 83 wins. So Jason's expecting a pretty big jump from last year to next year. What are you thinking?
I would say somewhere between that 74, 80. I'm going to go 78. I think Whit Merrifield is a solid infielder for them and a solid bat, consistent bat. So I think that'll help. Yeah, I'd say somewhere around 77, 78.
Okay. And the nice thing with Whit Merrifield, too, he also has speed. And as we all know, speed is a wonderful thing to have on the base paths to terrorize opposing pitching. I'm going to go, I think probably 74 to 77. I don't think they're going to hit the 80 win plateau next year. Their pitching doesn't scare me, and I don't. They're a traditional small market team. They don't typically open up big for free agents, so I'm just not seeing a huge jump like Jason's seeing with the Royals next year. I think 2 to 3 years. I think we could absolutely see that as more of those prospects come up. But right now, I'm not seeing much more than that. All righty, let's move on here. Next, we've got the big movers and shakers so far, the Tigers. So the Tigers ended last year third place in the AL Central. They had a record of 77 and 85. So on the depth chart, they have new arrival Tucker Barnhart. They've got Eric Haas and Dustin Garneau at catcher. First base, they've got Jonathan Shoup, Willie Castro at second, Hammer Candelario at third, new acquisition Javier Baez at short, which we're going to have fun ripping this one apart. In the outfield, they got Akil Baddoo, Daz Cameron, Robbie Grossman, and Miggy is still going to be coming back one more year at least, it looks like, to play DH and keep chasing down a couple more milestones before he hangs it up. And honestly, man, more power to him. Their pitching there heavily bolstered. They picked up Eduardo Rodriguez from the Red Sox as a free agent. They also have Tarek Skubal, Casey Mays, Matt Manning, and Tyler Alexander starting. Honestly, man, the Tigers, they should be making a lot of noise in the Central this year. One, because most of the division sucks. And two, they made some big acquisitions. I mean, Javi's deal is utter insanity for a guy who strikes out as often as he does, but 6 years, $140 million. He does have a player opt out after 2023. Barnhart was acquired in a trade with the Reds. They gave up Nick Quintana for him. And Eduardo Rodriguez deal, 5 years, $77 million with a player opt out after 2023. So I actually like the deal for Eduardo Rodriguez. That deal for Javi Baez is nuts. And I mean, that might just be the market because shortstop is so deep, but Jesus, $140 million for a guy who's guaranteed to strike out 200 plus times a year on sliders 2 feet off the plate. I can't, man.
Don't even get me started on that one. I think I agree with you that Rodriguez deal is really good. I think the trade for Barnhart, I think that can make a difference for them behind the plate. Javi is one of those. He's either really great for you or he's really terrible, and it's really not. There's no middle ground with him. He either has a great game or a great week, or a terrible week. This is kind of what you get with him. I'm speaking from experience. I'm really glad that the Tigers didn't give him $200 million because that's what he was looking for with the Cubs, and I think with the Mets. And it's just like, no. Why pay him $1 million for every strikeout? This is ridiculous.
And that right there is the one-liner of the night, folks. Why pay $1 million per strikeout? I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, I mean, yeah. Why the heck would Yeah. I mean, the Tigers are essentially paying for at least 140 strikeouts. That's what's going to happen. It's ridiculous.
140 strikeouts, man. If I had Javi Baez on my team and he only struck out 140 times, I'd be jumping for freaking joy.
Agreed.
Oh my God. Jason's thoughts. The Tigers are young other than Miggy, and they have some really good talent, made some good improvements overall. They still need some offense and speed. I definitely agree with the speed part. I mean, Javi adds good speed, if nothing else, but they definitely need a little more speed in that lineup, and relievers could be improved as well. But the Tigers are going to be interesting. They probably will be second. they're getting close to being able to fight with the White Sox a little bit. They should catch a few more games than they did last year, especially if they're on the White Sox. Like if it's a 4-5-1 series or a 3-4-5 series, they should be able to take, I would think, 2 out of 3 in that case. They're not ready to challenge the White Sox. Not even
No,
close. Yeah.
no, I would agree with that. I don't think they're gonna challenge for first. I think, from a talent standpoint, the Guardians are the only ones who could do that at this point in that division.
That still feels weird to say. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world. So with the Tigers, Jason said for his win prediction, he had them at about 81 wins. What do you think about that prediction?
Javi's probably good for at least that many, so I would probably go with it. I think it's a pretty safe bet. Javi's good for at least 2 or 3 of those. Rodriguez could be good for another 3 or 4. So, yeah, I think it's a safe bet, somewhere around 80.
The one thing I really like out of all of these moves, I mean, like I said, I really do like the Eduardo Rodriguez move, but I think my favorite move that they did was going after Tucker Barnhart. The catching free agent market this year is atrocious. There was not a lot of depth, and there's no really great starter among the catchers. So they found a team that's going to be rebuilding that's got a solid catcher in the Reds. And I honestly, Nick Quintana for Tucker Barnhart straight up, I think it's a win-win deal for both teams, to be completely honest with you. So, adding Tucker Barnhart, that should be probably worth a win or two because their catching situation was terrible last year. I think I'm going to go 83, 84. I think they should be I think they should be pretty set in at second place. They may be able to challenge for that second wild card spot. I don't think I'm going to lock them in as the team that will take it, but I think they should be able to stay competitive into September, at least into the first week or two, trying to get onto that second wild card spot.
Yeah, it's certainly possible, and I agree. Barnhart is, I think, the steal of the early trades. That's a steal for them.
To be honest with you, I was really surprised the Reds weren't able to extract at least one more, maybe not prospect out of the Tigers for that deal. Don't get me wrong, Quintana is a solid guy for third base, but just looking at how bad the catcher's market is, I am surprised they didn't try to get a little bit more, unless they were too afraid they were going to run the deal off, which that's utterly ridiculous if you had looked at the catcher market for more than 20 seconds.
Yeah, and I mean this deal was pretty much, I think between the end of the World Series and the day after your parade, I think it was in stock that weekend. I thought pretty early.
Yeah,
it was a very early move, and it could be really beneficial for them.
Yeah, and we talked about it last year before we hit the end of the year, just how bad the catching free agent market is. I mean, I think the number 2 or number 3 guy Atlanta signed to be a backup. Like, that's how weak the catcher free agent market is, that the top guys are backups. They're not even the starters.
Yeah, I think next year is going to be a big year for the catching free agent market. I know Wilson will be a free agent next year unless they make a deal with him. And he's a huge piece catching wise. So,
yeah, because he's got the glove, he's got the arm, and he's got a good bat. He's going to command a pretty good chunk of change. If I were the Cubs, I would try and work on a deal this offseason and don't do what the Braves did with Freddie Freeman and let him hit the market. Because I know he's been a little bit injury prone, but he's going to command top dollar on the market next year.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I think they rested him a lot more than they would have otherwise because the season was pretty much over.
Yeah.
But I think, I think by and large, I think Wilson is kind of probably the best catcher on the free agent market next year. And if the Cubs let him go, that's stupid on their part.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you think they let enough go so far?
Yeah, I mean, the only deal I was disappointed with last year was Rizzo. I'm a huge Rizzo guy. I know I've said that quite a bit. I'm a huge Rizzo guy. That was the move that disappointed me the most. I was the most sad about that one.
Yeah. No, I do remember that was the only deal you were not happy about when we were going after the trade deadline and evaluating
Don't
it.
get me wrong; they got great pieces for him, but I think you know he's you know those interviews with him and David Ross, those bullpen mic or those dugout mic'd up sessions from the World Series. Those things are just the stuff of legend, and the guy is really just such a stand up human being too. I think that's what the thing I like about him the most is he's such a stand up person. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Great community guy. He's an asset to any ball club.
Mhm.
So, all right, let's move on to the Cleveland Guardians, and maybe by opening day I'll be able to say that without going, really, the Guardians? Okay, maybe not. So last year the Guardians went 80-82 and were second place because the AL Central sucks, straight up sucks. Here's what we have in the depth chart so far. We got Austin Hedges catching and Bobby Bradley at first, Andres Jimenez at second, Jose Ramirez at third, Ahmed Rosario at short, and then in the outfield, Oscar Mercado, Miles Straw, Bradley Zimmer, and Franmil Reyes at DH. Now the pitching, finally, we've got a team with some decent depth pitching. They've got Shane Bieber, Aaron Savali, Zach Plesac, Cal Quantrill, and Tristan McKenzie starting. And they still have Emmanuel Clace as the closer. So the Guardians, they've got the pitching. It's not real. The pitching's not bad. The rest of the team outside of Jose Ramirez, I'm not really super worried to face that lineup, to be completely honest with you. And the only acquisition they've made so far is they picked up Tobias Myers from the Rays, and I believe he's a minor leaguer. And they trade away Junior Caminero back. And then they also lost Harold Ramirez. They sent him to the Cubs for some petty cash. So, um, you know, I don't know what to say about the Guardians. I'm not sold on this team being second next year. I will say that.
Yeah, I think the Tigers made more moves than the Guardians have so far. Um, I'd like to see what Cleveland does here between now and whenever the deal gets made in the beginning of the season. I think that'll tell a lot. I will say this: I do think Rosario at short is a bright spot for them. I think um, I think he's overperformed what they were hoping to get from him. I think so far when you count in all of Lindor's crap with the Mets, so far the Guardians have gotten the better of this deal.
I would agree with that. I wonder with Rosario, will he sustain it?
Yeah, that's a big question. I don't think we know the answer to that just yet. I agree with you. This is probably the best starting pitching besides the White Sox in this division. Hopefully Zach Plesac isn't on the wrong side of three no hitters again.
You got to feel for the guy, man. Being no hit 3 freaking times. Like it's like, guys, I'm doing my best. Can you at least give me a freaking hit, let alone a run?
Yeah, Zach Plesac, he got Degrommed more than once last year. It's pretty terrible.
Yeah, and if they don't get more than Rosario and Ramirez for bats in the lineup, that may happen again. So, yeah, wow. So, Jason's thought on the Guardians, he said simply, the Guardians need a lot. Need a better outfield. They need better relief pitching. Yeah, that's sums it up pretty well. Jason's prediction is a 3-win loss. He has them dropping down to 77 wins. What do you think?
I think they're going to stay somewhere around 80 where they were. I think they didn't necessarily get significantly worse. Again, they're in the worst division. So I mean, they didn't get significantly worse than last year. Um, I don't know. The fact that you could be second year division and be a game under 500 is ridiculous. So, um, you know, I still think they're gonna get somewhere around 80.
Yeah, I think I'm going to drop them just a little bit because of Detroit. And again, I do think the Twins are going to be a little better. So I think I'm going to go 78, 79. I think right around where they were, but a little bit worse. And again, I think they're dropping to third place. I don't think they're going to stay in second. All right. So let's look at the south side of Chicago, the much less beloved side of Chicago, shall we say. The White Sox last year dominated this utter dumpster fire of a division. They went 93-69, and that's considering they really didn't play any significant baseball in the second half of the year and really stopped caring, it seemed like, after about the first week of August. Yeah. So they were eliminated by the Astros in the ALDS, and one of those games they won one game, struck out like 18 Astros, and then one of the relievers shot his mouth off about, clearly the Astros were stealing our signs in Houston because, they struck out 18 times in 2 games and then 18 times in 1 game here. Yeah, well, then the Astros said, you know what, punk, bring it. Because the next game they pounded the White Sox for like 12 runs or something like that. So, be smart. That's all I'm going to be smart. Yeah, the Astros got busted a few years ago. Were they possibly stealing signs in Houston again? Sure, anything's possible. Don't poke the sleeping bear. You guys were not, that win was great. You didn't pick up a whole lot of momentum because the Astros are still a deeper lineup than you were at that point. I'll just never understand that. Anyway, so the White Sox, they're still bringing back a ridiculously deep team. You've got Yasmani Grandal catching. You've got Jose Abreu at first, who will probably once again be yet another MVP candidate. Lurie Garcia at second. Yohan Moncada at third. Tim Anderson at shortstop. And my God, that guy's he's a real 5-tool player. I love watching him play, especially that walk-off in the Field of Dreams game against the Yankees. The outfield's good. They've got Eloy Jimenez, Luis Roberts, Gavin Sheets, and they've got Andrew Vaughn DHing. And then, this is a ridiculous starting 5. They've got Lance Lynn, they've got Lucas Giolito, they've got Dylan Cease. To be honest, I don't think Dallas Keuchel should be listed as the 4th starter in the depth chart personally. And then they got Michael Kopech at 5. And now here's the interesting thing though, Joe. They've got 2 closers because that worked so well for them last year. They picked up Craig Kimbrell's option to keep both him and Liam Hendricks. And then they also went out and signed Kendall Graveman for 3 years, $24 million to be a setup man.
I think that's probably the Graveman move is probably because Kopech's moving up. For a while there, they were going Kopech, Kimbrell, Hendricks, I think. So because Kopech's going to move to the rotation, I think that's probably the reason for that move. I don't necessarily say that I get it. What's interesting is that we don't know where Carlos Rodon's going to go. So the fact that this is their starting rotation without Carlos Rodon,
mm-hmm.
and they had this rotation with Carlos Rodon last year and couldn't beat the Astros. I mean, to say that we've talked, ad nauseum about how bad the White Sox were in the playoffs last year, but the fact that they didn't have to play meaningful baseball for so long, leads to the nonsense, with Mercedes and La Russa and that whole nonsense in that Twins game. And, when you don't have to worry about losing the division, all that crap gets in the way. The La Russa decisions and all of that. To quote Moneyball, the best thing about their catching roster, Yasmani Grandal, he gets on base.
Mm-hmm.
The guy gets on base. It's insane. I think he had, 70 walks at one point last year. It's an astronomical number. It's pretty wild. I think that lineup, top to bottom, scares the living crap out of anybody, and it should.
Yeah.
So hopefully some of these other teams in this division who have gotten better can make this more competitive, so that they don't have to shut off the give a crap meter in August.
I like how you put that. Yeah, so Yasmani Grandal last year played in 93 games. In those 93 games, he walked 87 times and only struck out 82 times. He had a 240 average, an OBP of 420, a slugging of 520. And for those who can't do the quick math, that is 939 OPS. Not bad at all.
No. And he only played, what did you say, 90 games?
Yeah, like 94 games, yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I can't argue with that one bit. The dude gets on base. The dude, he has every starting pitcher's dream. He's a good catcher. He plays good defense. He calls a solid game for his starter. And he gets on base and supports the offense. What's not to love?
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. Anderson is a lot of fun to watch. But offensively, this lineup is just ridiculous.
Yeah, this lineup is scary good. It's not going to matter at all what the rest of the division does. This team is still going to be hands down walking away very early into the second half of the year with the division. I just don't see a whole lot of change there, as much as I would like to say otherwise. I just don't.
Yeah, I would hate for the same thing to happen, because it's going to happen again where they would shut it off in September or August and then, fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see. Oh, yeah. Jason said the White Sox are going to run away with the division. They have good depth. They've got really good talent around the field. Their trouble last year was the division was over early. Robert, Eloy, et cetera, are all fantastic. And yet, here's the thing, though. Yeah, they're all fantastic. Is the rest of the division going to be improved enough? To be honest, I don't know if I could say that. I just don't know at this point. I'd like to say the Tigers will be good enough. I don't think they're going to be good enough to challenge, though.
No, I think they'll fade out, and I think that the Guardians will fade out. I think the more we talk about it, the more I'm inclined to agree with you about the Tigers. I think they'll probably supplant the Guardians for second, but the White Sox, historically have other than last year, they've shown signs of being, well, you should win this series, and then they go ahead and lose it. They pull a Philly and Arizona thing and blow a series they shouldn't blow.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think La Russa learned his lesson? Do you think he's going to keep the pedal down a little harder and maybe rest the guys a little bit less so they don't get out of rhythm?
Well, he should learn that lesson. I don't know why he had to learn that lesson as long as he's been freaking managing, but
True.
It's ridiculous that someone who's been managing for 50 years, 40
Something
years.
Like it's been a long freaking time.
Yeah. Someone who's been managing that long doesn't realize that, hey, I've got to keep these guys going because it's not my fault the division sucks. You'd hope he learned his lesson. I think the other thing you hope is that he learned, this isn't really that big a deal. I'm not going to put my outfielder, my young outfielder, who's an amazing hitter, in a slump because I think it's okay if the other team throws at him. I mean, this is stupid.
Yeah.
These are things a guy who's been managing and been involved in baseball as long as La Russa has shouldn't have to learn.
You would think. All right, so Jason
It's not just because he used to coach the Cardinals. But good Lord.
I can't argue with that one bit, man. As much as I'd like to try, I cannot argue with that one bit.
Yeah, I mean, manage the Cardinals, manage the White Sox. You know, two of my arch rivals. I mean, you got to freaking know all these things as long as you've been coaching the game. Good Lord.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, so Joe, Jason's got the White Sox at about 94 wins next year, which is one more win than they had this year. How's that sound to you?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with it. I think Jason's usually spot on with a lot of this, and I think um, they didn't lose anything yet. I mean, we don't know about Rodon. I'm gonna drop him down to about 90. I think 88 to 90, just because we don't know what's going on with Rodon, and we don't know how well this two closer situation is going to work now that they've had time to figure it out. Um, and recalibrate Liam or Craig, whichever one they have to recalibrate and go, you're the eighth inning guy, get over it.
So here's the thing. I don't think Kimbrel's going to be with that team much longer. I think he gets traded during spring training or early into the year. He is chasing down, is it 500 saves?
Something.
Or is it 400?
Like
He's chasing down one of the major milestones, and he's only like 20 some away from it. So, he's not going to be content to be a setup man on a team that couldn't get out of the DS last year. I mean, granted, they lost to the World Series runners up, but still, I don't see Kimbrel being content with that.
Yeah, if I were La Russa, I would make Hendricks your eighth inning guy and Kimbrel your ninth inning guy. I think that's the best possible combination for you. Kimbrel is a totally different animal when he comes in outside of in the ninth inning or in the middle of the ninth inning. He's a completely different pitcher. So
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
It's for him. It's the same as any team playing the Yankees hearing "Enter Sandman" back 5-10 years ago. You hear "Enter Sandman," you're like, "Oh shit!"
Exactly.
Like, to me, Kimbrel's your ninth inning guy, and to do anything else is just ridiculous. As good as Liam Hendricks is, the fact that you've got a guy who's clearly a 9 inning guy and not anything sooner than that. And you have a guy who's, again, like you said, chasing milestones. I think the right move there, if you're the White Sox and you plan to keep him around, is to make him the closer.
Yeah, I think that's what they have to do, honestly. 372, so he's shooting for 400. 28 away, which, as long as he gets a chance to close, should not be a problem for Kimbrel. So I think I'm going to put the White Sox. So realistically, if they wouldn't have eased up last year, this should have been a 98 low to like 102 win ball club. So keeping that in mind and keeping what the rest of the division's doing, I think I'm going to put them about, assuming La Russa learned his lesson, I think I'm going to put them about 95, 96 wins next year. If La Russa didn't learn his lesson, they're probably going to be like 90, 91 wins. Honestly, unless the Tigers go on like a 2001 Mariners-like run, let's face it, nobody's going to knock the White Sox off.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reasonable analyst in the world who would disagree with you on that. I certainly don't. But I don't think that the Ken Rosenthal and Buster Olneys of the world would disagree with that assessment.
Yeah. All right, Joe, anything else from you tonight?
No, I just hope these guys, the players and the owners get this shit figured out. I don't want to miss games. I don't want to lose anything. The league has built too much momentum in the last couple of years that you'd hate to lose it on petty nonsense that should have been settled a long time ago.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. They need to look at what happened after the strike in 94, and how long it took the sport to recover from that. I mean, really, that gap in time there where baseball was recovering, that's when the NFL put the pedal.
Yeah, I would agree, Andrew. I think that's when the NFL put the pedal to the metal and overtook baseball as far as the prime sport. I think that's a huge reason for the NFL's rise in popularity, and I think major leagues can't possibly, go through that again. Um, the fact that Field of Dreams game was their highest ranked game in, I don't know, 16, 18 years, that they really can't afford to lose out on stuff like that. Looks like we've lost Andrew for the moment. Um, yeah, I just wish that the owners and the players would get in the room and figure this out. I think a reasonable thing here would be, raise the minimum salaries and get rid of this service time manipulation issue, and let's be done with this. And I think we've pretty well summed up. I think that the White Sox are going to run away with this division more than likely, and anybody else challenging that would be La Russa not learning his lesson, which, considering the fact that he thought it was okay to let somebody get thrown at all these years later, probably didn't learn it.